We're on his control, Matt's control, master controller. You got to do it like Ron does it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I like the other night meeting, the last board meeting where he was making those hand signals and felt like you're just like, I have no idea what you're trying to tell me. And he's like, are you landing a plane? Or are you trying to tell me my microphone's not on? I'm ready. Okay. So welcome everyone to the December 8th Student Learning Achievement Committee. It is 6:31. My name is Jennifer Chrysler. I'm the chair of the committee and officially calling the committee to order. Board members present for the record are Matt Campbell, Brooklyn Antonio, Daphne Moring, and myself. Just want to welcome everybody here tonight. This is my very last Student Learning Achievement Committee as a board member. And so while I'm super sad, I'm excited to pass the torch on to the next generation of board members and see what exciting things that they can do with it. This has probably been one of the funnest things that I've done in my tenure here at the school board. And maybe just, if not because we get the opportunity to talk with families and have people join us at the table and have some meaningful discussions and really change programmatic elements within the school. But it was really an opportunity for me and my most meaningful opportunity, I think, to really just make relationship with the administration and the great curriculum team and to see what's really happening behind the scenes at Gideon and Jefferson. So it's been an honor and a lifetime to serve as the chair of this committee since I was placed on the board, and I'm excited to have this last meeting with you. I do have a recommendation for anyone that's joining the board, which is it's really cold in here. And so, and it always is summer, winter. And so I waited till my last meeting to be fully prepared with my blanket and my fuzzy socks, and I've got some thermal stuff on here. But I'm just telling you, heed my advice and just don't be embarrassed by the blanket. You just bring it and own it and just be warm and enjoy. So with that being said, we do have a busy agenda tonight. We're going to go over the high school program of studies, how to help students plan for their next steps and get there, which I love that title. And then the COVID-19 Community Task Force update. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Elliott, moving our program.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I would like to start by thanking Jennifer for her leadership with this committee. It has been a true pleasure to work with you as well. And we really are so grateful for your just advocacy for kids and support of enhancing our teaching and learning. So you will be missed. And we're very grateful for being able to work with you in this capacity. So as you said, this evening, we are going to hear our annual update on the high school program of studies, as well as, future planning for students and helping them get there. We will also have an update on COVID. I did want to start, however, with just a quick touch base on the concept of student fees and course fees. That's something that we had talked about a couple years ago in this meeting. And as you remember, we made some updates last year to our high school program of studies, where we made some adjustments to take some course fees away so that all students would have a fee-free, with the exception of the instructional fee, a fee-free pathway to graduation. And so that's been in effect now for, this is the second year. The next step in that research and analysis on fees was to take a look at other course fees and kind of analyze the expenditures aligned to those courses to determine if those fees were appropriate, if they needed to be right-sized, or if we needed to consider elimination of that. So we have started that work, but unfortunately COVID has also slowed down the progress on that research and analysis. So that includes things like the art fees and the engineering fees, where they have special projects that also can change from year to year. So it's a little more in-depth process of working and collaborating with the teachers, which T and Jason have been working on. We have other fees such as our AP fees or some of our foreign language fees that are associated with tests or consumable workbooks that are a little easier for us to know exactly where those funds are going to. But that process is going, it's ongoing, and so we'll continue working through that and be coming back with more information as that's ready. But as far as tonight, we don't have any recommendations for changes for fees specifically. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen and pass it over to Jason Bates, who is our high school curriculum coordinator. He's going to talk us through the recommendations for the high school program of studies.
Right. Good evening, everyone. So to kick us off, the program of studies is live online. So the title of each of the slides is a hyperlink, and so you can click on that, or you can click on the actual image here, and it'll take you directly to the program of study. So if you have questions, or if you want to look a little more in depth exactly regarding what I'm speaking to, feel free to engage there. So I'll start off with just a few quick changes. We updated some of the Title IX information, the contact information surrounding that, regarding the administration who oversees that. We changed one of the principles of engineering course to a general elective from a science elective, just based on licensure of the teachers teaching the course. And then we changed some, structures with some of the layout within the program of studies to make it a little more user-friendly, and then a couple grammatical errors here and there that different departments found when they were reviewing their courses and the descriptions. So getting into some of the course changes for next year, we have a couple here in the social studies department. The first one is in the AP government course. So our AP government course currently is the United States government and politics course. The proposed change is to create within the same course, so it would be the same period, but it would allow for 2 courses to be incorporated into the 1 class. So this is similar to how our AP economics class runs with the micro macro. The micro macro is a little different though, because it's typically one semester of one and one of the other. With the US government politics and the comparative government politics, that is a little more intertwined, so it's not as a distinct difference, but this will allow students to take 2 AP tests to receive potentially more college credit when they apply to colleges. So that's the main reason behind it, and also just the nature of the course and the way in which it's instructed. This just lends itself a little easier to the content. And then the second recommended proposed change is the current African American Studies course. And the recommendation is to change the title to African American History and make this a year-long course. The first semester focusing on early African civilization to the Civil War, and the second focusing from voter rights to the present time. This just for the again within the course to cover the content in a more robust way and to allow for students to engage a little more in depth as opposed to just making this semester course where it's a little congested with it covering all of the material. The next recommended change is in one of our Easton Fairfield satellite courses, and we're proposing to add a sports medicine course. The sports medicine course for the first year would just be juniors here in Gahanna or within the satellite schools taking the course here at Clark Hall. It'll be at New Albany. New Albany will offer a section in the morning, and we'll offer a section in the afternoon to make up for the full teacher's workload. The goal of this is to run a full course next year with juniors and seniors. So we have a full-time teacher here in the 23-24 school year. So that's the goal. And the reason for the sports medicine program addition was driven in large part by student surveys that were sent out to students in grades 6 through 11 to gauge interest in future programs, career interests. So there were several questions that were posed within that as well, and also ranking their choices. So they were to express interest, very likely somewhat, very interested, somewhat interested, or not interested, and then they had to rank their choices. So the sports medicine and allied health were 2 of the choices that rose to the top in both of those 2 questions. So that was the main catalyst for us offering this. So we've been working with Easton Fairfield and their partners in creating this course.
If I could just add just a little bit to this too. So, like we have started to do the research and getting interest because we were looking for additional programming for the new high school. But we had this opportunity come available where Easton Fairfield had a teacher, or they're looking for a teacher to share between, as Jason said, New Albany and Gahanna, with the intent of growing both programs. So there would be a program at New Albany and a program here. So we would start with the juniors and share, but that's what kind of sped up the process of us adding the program for next year, because this opportunity was hard to pass when we have it available. So, but like Jason said, the student interest also showed that we would be able to support a program here.
So is the class part of one of the already existing Eastland Fairfield programs, or
No.
is the intent that
It's
it's
a
going to be a
separate program.
whole
It's
new program?
Yep.
So eventually there will be more classes that are part of the program?
So it's 4 classes total.
Oh,
The
okay.
first 2
Okay.
happen in junior year. So that's what Jason meant by like the section will be a section of juniors. They'll do the first 2 courses of the program, and then senior year, they complete the second 2.
Okay,
And so we will have just a set of juniors first with the intent of growing to juniors and seniors and then pulling up more juniors next year.
and the students, so because it's an Eastland Fairfield program, it's students from any of the school districts, but our students can take the classes either here in Gahanna or in New Albany?
Yes, but our goal is to get them to take
Sure.
them here.
Right.
But yes.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that's really, I mean, a brand new Eastland Fairfield program, that's wonderful.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to also have the space, since they do still have the
Yeah.
room downstairs. I'm sorry.
That's what I
what
was
you're
gonna
about to
say. You
say.
got it.
So we things just kind of fell in place, and so like I said, it was hard to pass it up.
Yeah,
And the students also showed interest in that, so it just all was like, yeah, it's time to move now. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, so we're definitely excited about that. Students are as well. So looking forward to what this brings next year. And then the last change here, and this is, there's quite a lot of information to share about this, but not all the information has been released from ODE. So what I can share is that currently ODE is proposing Algebra 2 equivalency courses to allow students more options to take courses aside from just Algebra 2 to be required for graduation. So you can see here the potential courses that they are proposing are the Algebra 2 stays, the Statistics and Probability, which we currently do offer, Data Science and Foundations, Discrete Math and Computer Science, and Quantitative Reasoning as part of their math modeling path. And the Data Science and the Quantitative Reasoning course are both being piloted by Ohio school districts. We are going to be applying to be a part of the last round of both the data science and the quantitative reasoning courses for the upcoming school year. We have met with the math department several times. We pulled a group of interested teachers into a professional development actually just yesterday, and we explored the different course options. There was a math symposium on November 9th and 10th that I attended and was able to gather some information. There are a couple of videos that ODE presented at OCTM conference in October that I also was able to attend, and they posted that link. So we watched some videos, we explored the information that was put out. The data science and the quantitative reasoning courses are the two that the teachers felt would best meet the needs of the students currently that we have. And so those are the two that we're going to move forward with applying to. Just a little more to talk about the reason behind this, and there'll be more information on this to come. But some of the work that they have been doing through ODE is meeting with the Ohio secondary and post-secondary math faculty. They've met with the Ohio Department of Higher Ed to look at the problem of Algebra 2 as a requirement for high school graduation. Because as high schools were noticing and colleges were noticing, that Algebra 2 requirement wasn't really meeting the needs of all students. And so as a result, they looked into options around this and where students were coming into college, where they were seeing a lot of need for remedial algebra coursework. And so they shared some information that was interesting. But what they found was that colleges were noticing that not all students need algebra. There was also a difference between the coherence between what high school coursework looked like and what colleges thought it looked like, as far as students coming in needing that remedial math. And then also noticing that all students aren't going to college, and so requiring that Algebra 2 piece isn't necessarily meeting what students' interests or needs are as they move into further education, be it within technical education or two-year colleges or accreditation. So that was the problem. They did share some information about some stats that I'd like to share. They said students were randomly assigned to a statistics co-requisite course, and they were 50% more likely to graduate from City University of New York as compared to those randomly assigned to remedial algebra course, and 39% more likely to graduate and pass advanced quantitative courses. So there's a lot of research going into this showing that the use of data science and statistics is much more impactful and needed for students and the various career fields that we're seeing in our workforce currently, which through our Workforce Development Advisory Council, we're hearing a lot of as well. So this is, this is preaching to the choir, if you will, for high school, teachers and administrators, because we've been saying this for years. So this is a great opportunity for us. The one thing that I will say, in their focus of creating these courses, the emphasis was on that these are equivalent courses as far as the thinking and the reasoning behind the coursework, not the content. And also that it was, the focus during the presentation was around rigor. So every course had to have the definition that they set forth within what rigor looks like in these courses. So very, very excited to hopefully pilot these. And if not, we're hoping to at least minimally run the data science course, because the data science course the curriculum is provided through through UCLA's Introduction to Data Science curriculum. And on this slide there, if you'd like, you can click on it. That's the actual curriculum that is free and is being used in the pilot. So the pilot will allow for professional learning opportunities with teachers in collaboration. But if we're not able to join that, we still have access to the curriculum, so we can work together to, just to support one another through that new course as well. We think that students are going to gravitate toward this. We think that it's a great opportunity. It really focuses us in on the idea of students taking courses and coursework that best meets their interests and their needs as far as college and career goals, which has been a focus in many of our departments as we look at professional learning, this year especially, but in the past, and it also directly aligns to our workforce development advisory opportunities as well. So it's a lot of information to share, but we're really excited to offer these courses and hopefully at one point, hopefully offer all 5 course options for students to meet their last 2 high school course requirements at minimum.
Do we have a teacher that's able to teach the data science?
So all high school teachers are licensed to teach any of these courses. And so one of the questions that I asked at the end of the time yesterday was, which courses do you think would best align to student interests and needs? Which courses are you excited about? And then which courses would you be interested in teaching? So the data science and the quantitative reasoning rose to the top in all 3 of those questions. So I think we're in a great position to move forward with that. And then knowing that we're going to have to continue to support the teachers, this year and next year, and continue to move forward with that.
And Jason, isn't it, if we are able to get into the pilot, there is some professional learning that's involved in that as well?
Yeah, there's professional learning that is offered, and there are collaborative opportunities with teachers at different Central Ohio districts that are in that pilot. I've talked to a few of the teachers in the pilot. They're very excited. One thing I failed to mention was that in each of these courses, the focus is pivoting from more the lecture-based traditional structures to collaboration, very project-based learning. In fact, each of their lessons in the quantitative reasoning course, the title of the lesson is the activity. So 90 to 95% of the time, kids are going to be up, moving around, actually, creating their own learning, oftentimes creating their own experiments, gathering their own data sets. So, which is in a perfect alignment to our CPM curriculum, which they've had in the Bridget, from pretty much K-12 now. So,
And some of the teaching and learning that we're learning about and exploring in preparation for the new building as well. So
yeah,
good.
it's all very well aligned. So when I was, at the math symposium on November 9th and 10th at home, I was like, just writing down everything, trying to take all these screenshots. As a former math teacher, I'm like, so this is really great news all the way around.
Do they have any data about, so I know that the idea is to provide more opportunities. There are lots of our students who are not headed off to 4-year college. They're headed off to different kind of education after, but do we have any data about how a traditional 4-year college would evaluate a class like one of these?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it was also a focus yesterday because we looked at these courses as great opportunities for students who haven't had great opportunities in the past. Because, our mathematics curriculum is really strong for the college-bound student with opportunities for growth for those who have not gone to college. One of the presentations that they watched, in each of it was for OCTM. That was the video that they watched yesterday. Which was a different sort of message because it was a different audience in October than it was in November. But each of these courses has direct ties to college. So they actually, there are different slides, but in each of these courses, they show careers that would be best suited for these classes. So, based on the work that we're doing in middle school and high school, as far as identifying your interests and taking coursework aligned to it, it fits perfectly, because a lot of these courses, actually every single one of these courses really is appropriate for students going to college based on what your major is.
Right.
But what they're finding is that a large majority of students are not taking majors that require a calculus-based, course. So the Algebra 2 pathway is directly aligned to that calculus-based framework as far as the STEM major. But other STEM courses, really rely on, like the data science and the computer science courses. That's heavily aligned to several STEM fields. So the idea behind this is not like a tracking system. It's not like a college and a not college
Right.
track, because all students taking these, I think of them as 3 other courses because we currently offer 2 of them. They're directly aligned to college majors. They're just better aligned. And the beauty behind this is that if a student is interested in computers, but they might not know they're interested in, in computer science as a major, they can take that data science or that discrete math and computer science course and find that that is a passion of theirs. Now I know I need to get back into that calculus path because that's my trajectory into college. So, they might not know, but that gives them a chance to explore, jump back to Algebra 2 so they can get on that calculus pathway because it's what their college major would require.
And just to point out that it is a little hard to see on the screen, but if you're able to see these on ODE site, it lists some of the careers under each of those classes. So like with the statistics and probability, it says political science, social work, data science, and software quality assurance, public relations. So it does list, and again, it's meant for kids identifying where their interests are and now finding a math course that is more appropriately aligned, as you mentioned.
I think one of the strengths of this too is that it will allow us to connect with community workforce.
Right.
And so that we can bring them into the class now. We can use real life simulations or examples as part of the coursework to allow students to have more access to what different careers might look like. Because right now it's not necessarily solidified in a student's head what some of these majors do.
I feel like I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm
Go for
sorry.
it.
Going back to the government class and the, I guess the 2 classes that are being added in social studies. Do we have teachers for those? And then 2, so we're adding a whole new opportunity to take a new AP exam. Does whoever is going to be teaching that have the support, or will they have the support and training that they need to make sure that students are prepared for that AP exam?
Yeah, so part of the process last year, the teacher who currently is our AP government teacher expressed interest. So we, when a teacher comes to us and says, I'm interested in this new course, the first thing we ask is, how do the students feel? What student interests have you gauged from this? And then the second is around what requirements there are, what support you need. So as part of the exploration last year, he went to an AP conference on this. So, he came back now, invigorated, ready to go. So he's in a position, qualified. And then our current African-American studies teacher is the one who proposed this change. And so he would also then just continue teaching if we were to approve the history, the African-American history course as a 4-year course.
I have a piggyback question on that one. If we're adding comparative to U.S. government, is that just the same period of time, or are we requiring a larger block of time? Or, do we have that available time? Obviously, yes, you're moving forward, but my concern is, what are we dropping? What kind of material are we dropping that we would normally present it in order to add the comparative?
So we wouldn't be adding another period. It would be covered in the same period for a 4-year course. I think, a lot of the work in the comparative piece is done just naturally in the course. So nothing would be taken off. It would just be presented in a different way as far as like intertwining the comparative piece with it. So nothing would be dropped. In fact, I think, based on the way in which it's currently being taught, it's being taught through this lens currently. We just don't have the opportunity for students to take that second course to potentially get the college credit.
I have this recollection, and maybe one of you know, but there is a college credit plus class at Columbus State, and I feel like combined government with comparative.
Yeah, he's also interested in teaching a comparative politics course through Columbus State. Currently, that's not one of our CCP offerings.
Right.
For the embedded
Right.
piece, but
It's
Columbus
not
State does
taught
have
here,
that.
it's taught at
Yes,
Columbus
correct.
State, but I feel like the way that they have it structured,
That is merged.
it's
too.
merged.
Yes. And so he's also the CCP teacher that teaches the government class, the state and local politics, and the US government, the 1100 and the 1250 courses. So he teaches that currently, and that CCP course is one period a day for a semester, and that is a full year credit course. So, you know, the way in which he currently structures his AP government class is similar to the CCP government course. But that CCP government course is only a semester. So, so there wouldn't be anything within the curriculum that would be left out. It would just be, you know, marrying the two.
No, I guess, any questions from any other board members? Any question or discussion from any?
I just feel like the additions are great. I mean, you know, continuing to enhance the opportunities, especially for the algebra. Just the word algebra freaks people out, right? So having an option called data science will be just in and of itself a more inviting opportunity. And there's just so, I mean, quantitative reasoning, there's so many opportunities to use that knowledge. It's much more applicable for people to understand than algebra, which I think is easy to. Not everybody does.
And I would agree with that. I think that, you know, what I hear a lot from parents, especially graduated parents, is that if they have kids who are in majors in college, for example, maybe it's arts, humanities, where I feel like sometimes the math track is so heavily towards towards these STEM careers. And it's not necessarily a question about college or not college or preparation, but there's been more than one parent that's come back to me and said, gosh, my kid's taking a sociology major and they have to take a statistics course in order to graduate, but they actually have no background because they have an algebra, track, a calculus track, and they have no background towards the statistics class and how much, useful would it have been for them to be able to have this option to be prepared for this major. So it seems like if you're not doing science, technology, engineering and math, then it was like, okay, well, just, sit through this and do the best you can, right?
Survive it, yeah.
Survive it, but it's fantastic to have an offering that kind of gives kids options that maybe they didn't think they had. What I also like about it too is that if there's a kid that's borderline about whether or not what they want to do and even going to a college, four-year college, and they take an algebra class and they're just like, if this is what it's going to be like, I don't want to do it. Like how much, I can't think of a time in my life where I've used algebra.
You have.
And a lot of the student panels, that sentiment was the same. I didn't know I liked math until I took some of these classes that had coding opportunities and statistics, and I realized, wow, I'm actually good at this and I like it. So that was, and each of the 5 new potential courses, including algebra 2, because they're going to do some tweaks with what they recommend as far as the curriculum. Teachers were presenting on them, and student voice was a part of that. And every single student voice it's just different, and they're much more engaging and applicable to what things are.
Great, thank you.
So will we have the program of studies to approve on
Yes,
next
month.
or
Next
on this month's agenda? Okay,
Yes.
great.
So as we continue on, begin to talk about planning students' next steps, we know that a major part of helping students prepare for life after graduation comes from the courses and the instruction that they receive while they're in school. And so, as Jason shared, and as you see in the program of studies, we'll see in the program of studies, we have a lot of courses that our students can choose from. But we know that the courses alone are not enough to help them to make those decisions about what life will be like or where they want to go once they cross the stage. And so because of that, if you remember several years ago, ODE put together a college and career readiness framework that was kind of like this continuum of, you know, how we should be preparing students and how we should be helping them to explore and understand and learn and to develop those plans, so that they can build their awareness and be better set once they get to high school for what comes after high school. And so from that, there it is, okay. From that, we developed the Gahanna College Career Readiness Plan that was designed based on that framework. And essentially is chunked in the different areas. And so I'm just going to go through this a little briefly about the different opportunities that we have to begin to help students and families to explore and understand what opportunities they have available. One of the things I do want to note, so this plan was first developed in 2017, but it is a living document, so it continues to evolve and change as updates come, as programming shifts, and so there have been some adjustments over the years, but that's when it was first created. And we will continue to update it as we continue to refine and add different opportunities for students. For us, we begin at the elementary in grade 5 with career awareness. Now, we do realize that, you know, some students may have different experiences based on, you know, the classroom, teacher, and or building that they're at. But this plan focuses on those consistent opportunities that we have for all students across all buildings. So that's what you'll see in this document. And like I said, again, it is an ever-changing, ever-growing document. But what we have is at the 5th grade, so our school counselors at the elementary school were really good about getting guest speakers to come in and speak to students about their career passions and about the different things that they do with their jobs, just for that awareness piece. And in the past, we have had a few of our buildings attend also Junior Achievements BizTown, which is like a day-long simulated town where the students get to be elected officials, they get to be business owners and employers and employees and townspeople and learn all the roles and learn all of the things. I'm really excited that this year we will have 5 buildings attend, and we are working towards all 7 buildings attend. So I'm very excited about that. And they've already actually started going. I believe Black Lake went earlier in November, and then we have some that are going later or in December and then into January. So very excited about that experience for them. Kids always leave with a lot of great things to say about, because they get to play in those different roles, and to go to the simulated town the way that they have it set up, it's a phenomenal experience for kids.
There's curriculum that goes with it.
Yes,
too, right?
there is curriculum that's connected with it. And so the teachers, as they're preparing students to go, they have 12 different lessons that they incorporate into the classroom, and then they get ready for their day-long simulation. Then as we move into the middle school years, we have our self-awareness and career exploration. And I will make note, so you're going to see Naviance through here. I will speak directly to Naviance after I talk about this plan. So I'm just going to go through, but then we'll talk more specifically about Naviance a little later in the presentation. But again, the intent for middle school is helping students to understand who they are and to begin to set goals about what they think based on who they are and what they're learning about themselves, where they want to go.
Can you make it bigger?
Yeah, see, yes, I can. Jill's computer, so there it is. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's fine. And so again, making the shift, because naturally in middle school is really a lot when students are just trying to figure out who they are, you know, they're coming into puberty, all kinds of things. So naturally is the time, let's start learning about our skills, let's start learning about our interests, our personalities and things like that. Again, they also have opportunities for guest speakers to come in, and that is typically done and supported with our library media specialists in the different buildings, but focused on goal setting and different interest surveys to help them to start to learn more about themselves Middle school is also the first place where they start to get to explore with specific classes that are connected to different career fields and interests, like the design and modeling class and the medical detectives. And middle school wraps up with the culminating event with the job shadow day in 8th grade. And then as we move into high school, this is where we start, I'll shift it over here so you can see that they actually began their career planning. And the idea is, they start to get the exposure, they start to learn about themselves, they're setting goals, and now they're starting to be able to connect the dots based on the more that they're learning about themselves and the classes that they're taking, where they see themselves once they finish the 4 years. And so again, they come back with some goal setting and refinement based on the information that they've learned and shared about from middle school, and then additional surveys that they can complete to continue to learn about themselves. And then we increase the options of courses that are specific to different career fields and interest areas that they can take. Scroll down so you can see. The other piece that gets added at the middle school, because our students are a little older, they have a little bit more independence, a little more flexibility in their schedule, is they have more work-based learning opportunities that become available, like internships, mentorships, the additional shadow days where they're actually in a facility, they're able to do some simulated work right next to an employer, and some capstone projects. Those things start to come into the high school and more specifically into the junior and senior year. And the idea is that with all of those experiences, it would come to the culmination of them having a better idea of where they see themselves, whether that is college and then to career, if that's military, or a blend of the three. They have a good understanding because they've been able to sample into a number of different things and learn about themselves, and this is a safe environment for them to be able to do that. So before I switch, are there any questions on this document or this information?
The one thing that I love our DECA program, but I hate that it's so limited in the number of students. Is there ever an opportunity to have a second section?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a long period, right?
Yes.
It's
Mhm. It's a right now DECA is a senior only program also, but there are different opportunities, and something that we had looked at exploring before was having a non-CTE or non-career tech path for marketing, so still give students the same opportunities, but it wasn't connected to the career center, if you will. And so, I mean, we're really just always exploring, and a part of, like Jason said, with the survey from the students is seeing where their interests are lying. And then that helps us to better decide which programs we need to include, which ones we need to enhance, which ones we need to maybe shift away from, like that part, that's what we're always trying to develop. So yes, there's opportunity for more marketing for sure. We would definitely want to dive back into the data to see where the requests are and the interest is there, and then what that might look like within our schedule and our staffing and things like that.
I know when my daughters went through it, there was always way more kids that applied for that program than got in it, and so it always struck me as to why we not expand that program.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
The soft skills
Yeah.
that they learn in addition to the technical skills are extremely valuable.
Right.
The other thing to think about, and this is just always important to bring up, when we talk about adding more, then it also takes away from others, right? Because you're taking kids out of certain classes and putting them in others. So it's just it's a comprehensive process of looking at interests, staffing, what are we offering, what can't we run anymore because we don't have enough students to create a full class. So there's pros and cons to different situations.
I have a question. I think I've asked it before, and I don't know if now is the right time to be asking it, but I know that I have heard from a number of parents, and I think students too, that they are amazed at all of the opportunities that we have, particularly at the high school level. But it is almost overwhelming for both students and parents. And the question that I have is, and I know what I think the answer is. I think I know what you think the answer is, but it, of course, requires money. But do we have enough guidance staff to really help people understand what all these options are, what they mean? And I mean students and parents both. I mean, we have a pretty large number of students that are trying to navigate all of this. And again, I think it's one of the best kept secrets in Central Ohio, the number of programs that we have, the depth of programming that we have, the quality of teaching that we have, but figuring out, especially as a brand new student or a brand new family who hasn't done any of this before, it's a lot. And it, I mean, our guidance staff is, they're wonderful, but there's only so many of them to really spend the time to help people do that navigating.
So I know one thing in particular that Jessica has been working on since she's been at the school is really working with the counselors and Lisa Kelly, who oversees our school counselors, to kind of look at what they're spending their time on, kind of reshape some of the programming goals of the counseling department at the high school. So that's a work in progress that will hopefully free them up from doing certain things like test accommodations and 504s and things like that, so that they can spend more time with kids, having these conversations, following this plan that's kind of been outlined for them. So that's a big piece that just takes a little bit of time to grow into. And then the other thing I will say is in the conversations we've had recently about position ads related to the 5-year forecast, we do have additional counseling support worked in over the course of the next few years as growth, expands at the high school to support in that way as well. So those kind of things together will hopefully provide some relief. The honest answer is we can always use more staff in every single department.
Of course, right. Yeah, and I guess at the middle school level even too, like as kids are getting ready to make that shift, I mean, it is just truly a whole different experience, an amazing, wonderful one with so many opportunities. But I know, like I said, it can be overwhelming. I think maybe if they're able to spend some time in 8th grade, really getting an understanding of what the opportunity, I know that they come and they do this overview and because they're like, I have no idea what they're talking about.
It's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, and I think also, I mean, I know I don't want to say the words because it probably makes people cringe, but we used to do the parent university stuff where we did provide some education.
Note on my desk.
I know, we
Mine
need
too.
more
Mine
staff,
too.
we just need more staff and more time, but it's just, I would not want people to miss out on the incredible opportunities that we have.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that we've been working on in addition to, taking a look at, in addition to Jessica taking a look at, the counseling staff and their responsibilities is also looking at the way that we share the information and even as far as the program of studies and trying to make that a little bit more user friendly. And we've been working to align some things to show some different connections. So if you're, and I think we have it for like the business and the engineering, we're just kind of working our way through the different programs. But if you're interested in these types of things, these would be the classes that you might want to take. And then here's a pathway that you might, if you want to do the full program, those types of things. And not to pigeonhole or try to tell the students like, this is what you have to do. But here's the options laid out a little bit more clear. If this is something that you want to explore in. So we have been working through that. It has taken us some time to get all of that because our program of studies is robust, which is wonderful and also overwhelming for everyone. But making sure and finding those different opportunities where we can market our programs and courses in different ways. So I know the high school has also done some additional like course fairs and club fairs and things like that, where they've set up stations and had teachers and students that are currently in some of the classes and the programs be able to answer questions and kind of speak, and other kids can come around and kind of learn a little bit about that. I believe, Jason, you've been working with our broadcasting class to get little snippets of information out on the announcements and things. Definitely wanting to be able to start sharing that information down at the middle school, especially with 8th grade as they're starting to explore. So little steps for sure, but we know we absolutely need to continue to work on that.
I always wondered if I know that the team that upperclassmen that helps with freshmen the first couple weeks of
The link
school,
crew, yes.
you've got that amazing, talented, knowledgeable group of young people. If they could actually go to the middle schools, right?
Good idea.
That would be amazing.
That's a good idea.
And just say, I lived through it, you're gonna live through it, let me tell you what I love, let me,
Well, how many people though have used their like neighbors, high school kids? and you-
absolutely.
And
right
said,
now.
can you just spend 10 minutes with
Yep.
my kid, helping them
Yes.
understand? That is a fantastic idea, because then it also gives the opportunity, I think, sometimes for kids to talk to kids.
Yes.
And that, I think, number one, establishes relationships in the school, so that when the kids come into the school for the next year, there's already people that they start to know and they start to feel a part of it.
Mhm.
But also they're speaking of maybe a language that's a little, like they're gonna tolerate each other a little bit more than maybe adults speaking at.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I agree. I've had many parents call and like, can I talk to Holly or Mallory?
Yeah.
Like, can I send my kid over to talk to them?
Yeah, same.
And it just, I love listening to their conversations, right? Like, because what we offer is just so amazing.
Yeah, Colton did a Zoom session last year with like 4 of our neighbors,
Nice.
like our 8th graders. So that's a fantastic idea.
All right, so then we will.
I just noticed you guys have like more than one per person.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing to watch for this. Like,
So we will now shift into the conversation about Naviance, and it is brought in here because, again, you will have noticed that it is a part of our plan. And so just wanted to have an opportunity to talk about Naviance, its use, how long we've had it, show you some of the updates that have taken place, and talk about how we're moving forward with it. And so first, just for as a reminder, a refresher, Naviance is a college and career research site that is meant for students and families to be able to explore. They again can do those interest surveys, learn about themselves, but then they can start to do some research on different careers and or colleges that they might be interested in to help them with their planning. We also use it a ton in the senior year because a lot of the actions for those students who are college bound are also embedded in Naviance, like college applications and FAFSA and all of those kinds of things, teacher recommendations and all of those things. And so what I want to do first, I'm going to go through several items with you with Naviance, but what I want to do first is just showcase some of the updates, because over the last spring, they did a lot of enhancements with the program. So I wanted you to be able to see the program from the updates, and then I'll talk through, what we have done since then. Again, this one is Jill's computer, so I'm not as versed with using it.
And my trackpad.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's totally different than mine. So excuse that. So this is a demo site, and I'm actually going to go to the 10th grade, but this is what it looks like for students who, when they log in to Naviance, this is what they see as their homepage. One of the biggest things that they've done is change their formatting and made it more user friendly, and just kind of update it so that it is just more dynamic for students. On this homepage, they have different things like if they favorited any colleges, if they favorited any careers, if there's any announcements or upcoming events, the message from the school, and any tasks or to-dos that they have. What I wanted to show you here, though, so then they also have updated their assessments, and they've added this tab. They put them all together on this tab called self-discovery. And so now all of the surveys and assessments that they offer are now housed in this area. And another change that they made is all of the surveys and assessments can be taken more than once. As many times as a student wants to, with the exception of the Strength Explorer. It's the only one that they can only do one time, but everything else they can do multiple times, and they can see if their interests have changed, if their skills have changed, if their learning styles have changed, and things of that nature. And so I just wanted to kind of show you, first I wanted you to see kind of what it looks like, so the update when you're in an assessment, just so you can kind of see how the questions pop up, and they can just click through and they change as this is one I've already done, but like if I select, and then it'll automatically change to the next question. So kids can just go through and rank themselves, and then at the end, they get their results. So I'll go here to another one. So just so you can see again how the results kind of lay out. So this is a different assessment, but once they click through the survey, the assessment, then their result summary shows for that particular assessment. And then based on how they answer the questions, it just tells them a little bit about themselves.
That's awesome.
And so, and all of these are clickable. It's like it's going a little bit slower. Well, no, I'm sorry, those are not clickable, but if you scroll down, it just breaks down the differences between all of the different areas. In this particular case, it shows you, so in here it said that I have a strength in a naturalist intelligence, so then it describes what that means. And they did with their assessment, so they added the intelligence and the personality. It helped them to learn their learning styles and how they connect with people and things like that. So again, really being able to learn about themselves, and then also added in addition to the career interest surveys, where they can see now how some of these skills connect to different career areas and course and pathways.
Is this really your report?
This
Are
is
you
really
like the
my
best
report.
style hunter?
Yeah. This is really my report, yes. So I won't scroll all the way down, but I want you to be able to
See who else you're like.
right. How it goes down. And so again, all of these can be retaken if the student wants to, try it again and see if they get a different result. And the information is always listed there. Then
And some of these surveys in the self-discovery portion are what you would have seen on the GJPS
Yes.
plan. So at certain grades, they're completing some of these certain surveys along the way.
yes. And then, we'll come back to how it's outlined there. I just wanted to show you the experience first, and then we'll come back to the Naviance. So then under the careers tab, again, they just made it a little bit more user-friendly, and I think appealing to young people. Eliminated some of the words, or just made the pictures more robust, so that it is just a little bit more appealing than what it used to be. But students can come in here and they can search for a particular career. They can search for a cluster or pathway, and then find information about that. And so like within the architecture and construction, they can see different pathways within that, and then you can dive deeper into that and learn more information about the career, the upcoming events. I'll come back to that with the employment outlook, what it's looking like in the job market, your typical credentials needed, related occupations and such. So tons of research that can happen here. I actually am going to go back one more. I wanted you to see. So like if they search a particular career, I want you to see how it also breaks that information down. So it talks about this career, which pathways it would fall into. So if they want to go explore some more. They talk about the salary range across the US. A little bit of that connection to what they learn about themselves and how it might relate to this field, or what other skills and personality traits would actually gravitate towards this. They can look at
Is that starting wages? Is that?
these would be I want to say these are median salary. Yeah, these are median salary. And so, but again, so, and it lays it out differently. Some different careers have different information, obviously, based on the career that they would choose. But they could see a quick snapshot of the education needed and what that median salary would be. And then they can favorite it if that is a career that they want to come back to do some more exploration.
I don't see assistant superintendent on there anywhere.
It'll be under education.
A little more about that.
But one of the other things that they added was this work-based learning tab under careers. And now what this does is gives us the opportunity to push out information about work-based learning more easily to students. And so this is actually a real event that we have coming up on Friday for our high school students. Accenture is they're a leading global company in professional services, but they have a cloud innovation center. And so they partnered with Junior Achievement to create a capstone program, and they're looking for students to participate in that. So they're coming to speak to some of our high school students on Friday to talk about that opportunity. And then more information will be shared out from there. So this, with Naviance, they've added this on here as a way for, community and schools to be able to push out more information as we get opportunities. Because, girl, back to the question you had, sometimes when we get the information, also it's coming from so many different places that kids can't keep up with it. And so now we have a place where we can house everything, and every student has access to it.
So they have to log into Naviance to see that that's coming up.
Yes,
It
they would.
doesn't push in an email.
It doesn't push an email. That is something that we pushed out to, I've pushed out to Naviance to get that as it sends it as an automatic alert to students. But right now it does not. So we are still pushing information through the counselors and through the teachers to be able to share as well.
And maybe you were just about to get into this with the data on the Naviance
Yes.
usage, but
I am, yes. Go ahead.
and I don't want to, you can answer the question when you answer this, but are we making shifts in when we're giving students information? So what, at what age, what grade we're giving students information about what, and students and parents, I'm gonna say that again. What is Naviance? How do I log into Naviance? What's there? What resources are available? And again, I mean that for students and parents.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And so I will
Yep.
just go into that now, because I also will share some of the statistics on usage. But definitely we know that the communication around Naviance and the access to Naviance over the years has been not what we wanted it to be. And we know that, when the pandemic hit, it really did put a damper, but we also know that we were having these issues before the pandemic. So that is not the excuse. And so one of the things as we moved into this year, I did make some changes to the Naviance implementation plan that I want to go through that with you as well. But the other piece was knowing that we had to be more intentional about the communication around it, much more intentional than what we had been, and then also the student access to it. So one of the things that we did differently this year was there was actually communication that went out in September, reintroducing or introducing for some Naviance. And so I just wanted to put that up here. And so this was shared, and this went out to families through the building principals at the middle school and the high school, because it was geared towards families seeing it and talking to students to go through it. But it was that introduction to Naviance and talking about how to, what it's used for. And then also there was this infographic that was included, that was created by one of our high school counselors that pretty much walks students on how to access it initially. And so just talking through, every student is in Naviance middle school, 6th grade on up, and they can access it through ClassLink. And so this just walks through the steps for that. And again, given some ideas of what they can do with it and how they can use it. And then within the letter, it was encouraged to start exploring, and then more information would come from their school counselor. There will be another round of communication that goes out first of the year as a, hey, remember, and here's something else to try, and then counselors will get back in as well.
So I know that this walks them through how to access it through ClassLink on their Chromebook. Is there any other way to access it? For example, I mean, a parent or a guardian or even a sibling doesn't necessarily have access to their student's Chromebook.
So there is actually a link, and Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a link to get to ClassLink from any computer, yes?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
They would
But they're
still
not
need to,
logged in.
right, they would still have to know the student's credentials. to
Yeah.
log into
Okay,
class.
yeah.
So maybe, I guess just a suggestion, when the second communication goes out, I think this is wonderful because it is confusing even for a student
Yes.
who's never been in it. How to get to it just through their Chromebook when they're already logged in, but maybe adding that information about how to log in if you're not already on your logged in district Chromebook.
And they need an app.
Yeah, an app would be great.
Yeah, I'll put that in, I'll suggest it too. And so that went out, and that, again, it was that initial piece to be able to say, here is this platform, here's what it's used for, these are some things that you could explore, and then the school counselor will connect with you for more information. So now I do want to jump into the updated Naviance implementation plan. I know at one of our previous meetings, we talked about these changes, and then that is when COVID hit. And so it did not get to where it needed to get to, and now we're getting back on track. I will say, and as I mentioned a little bit later, I am going to show the usage numbers for you to see at the different grade levels. But I definitely will tell you that middle school is still very low. And we're definitely working on that. But I actually have, starting in January, during third quarter, actually every student through their health class will get into Naviance and again begin that goal setting, because it's already connected to the health curriculum in middle school where they have to set goals. And now it's like, let's use this platform that we have that has the goal setting components for you to be able to do that. And that is one thing I wanted to show you. Here it is. So I want to go back to the student demo in Naviance, and I just want you to see, students can get to it in two ways. Here on the main page, they can click and see under their to-dos and tasks, they can see all in my planner, or at the top navigation, they can get to their planner. But when they click in there, it has the calendar. And so this would be like if their counselor, their teacher pushes out a task for them to complete, they would find it here. But what I wanted you to see is where the goals are housed. So this is where they could come in and set their goals. And then it just stays with their count. So when they set them, then they can come back and look and see progress on them. If they need to update, if they want to add goals, this is where it is for them. And connected to, they can click back and look at, what are their survey results are telling them about themselves, how that might impact the goals that they set. So in January, we will begin that with middle school in their health classes. And then next year we'll start again first quarter. And so then we will have all middle school in, and we'll be following the progression completely. So this is the progression then that brings it into middle school. And so the idea is that the very first time the kids engage with it will be in sixth grade, and they're looking from that goal setting perspective. And then also starting to learn about themselves. As I said, that's the self-awareness piece. So when you're talking about, how do I learn best? What are the types of people that I like to be around? Those are already the kinds of questions that middle schoolers are thinking about, even if they don't know that that's what they're thinking about. And also thinking about, there is a major shift from elementary to middle school in terms of just their independence, their changing classes. And so understanding how they learn best is really good for them to see there, because it's not as directed as it was or might have been in elementary school. Then as they move through, again, they're just reviewing those goals. And then the assessments, I actually went through all of the assessments just to see what the questions are and how the reports, to try to see which grades we felt like were appropriate for the different surveys based on what the information that the kids would get from them. But like I said, all of the surveys are available to a kid. So it's not like they're bound to only be able to do the one. A student can play and take them all and then come back and continue to do them again the more they want to learn about themselves. But based on the information that are in those surveys, this is kind of the progression that felt natural based on the learning of the kids. And so then as they move into 8th grade, you know, that's where they start to think about their intelligences, and they're looking at their personality and their interests and their skills. But then also here's in 8th grade is where we start to really be more intentional about the career interest profiler, or looking at that career, because knowing that they're going to have that culminating experience in the 8th grade, and we want that to be meaningful for students, that they have identified some career areas that they would be interested in exploring, and then that's what they would who they would connect with for their possible shadow day. We are very fortunate that, you know, our Workforce Development Advisory Council is still running strong. We actually have a meeting tomorrow. And so that gives us even more connections with business and industry and organizations to have opportunities for kids to connect with that are right in our community. And so then, one thing I will point out, so Road Trip Nation is still available in Naviance. It is something that is separate from Naviance, but they have the videos within that. And those are just short videos that, again, give students an opportunity to explore in different areas. You're hearing from people that are actually in those careers. You can see them in action through those videos. Those would be things that students can do independently, but they're there on the site as well under the careers tab. And so then as they move into 9th grade, and this we actually did start this year, 9th grade, they had their first introduction earlier in the fall, and the counselors went into all of the English 9 classes. And so after the main communication went out to the district, then the counselors went in and did a presentation and kind of walked students through how to access Naviance, how to set up a goal, and actually walk them through the one of the surveys, the achievements, the achieve work skills. And then independently they can start working on their resume and looking at the Road Trip Nation. In the 10th grade, they went into the English 10 classes and had a similar presentation, but they focused it a little bit more on the career side and looking at the skills there. And they did these presentations before the November trips to the Career Center to kind of help give students an idea of which programs they might want to look at when they go to the Career Center. As they move into 11th grade, now 11th grade for the high school standpoint has low numbers, which you'll see when I get to that slide, because they haven't had their class meetings yet. They will meet in January, and then they'll have that information. But I have spoken to the counselors about like getting everybody's pushed up. So we should have that first engagement should be in the fall, and then a second engagement in the second semester sometime to keep that moving. So at this time, our juniors haven't had the intense introduction to Naviance as the other grades have, and you'll see that reflected in the numbers that I'll show here in a minute. But they are scheduled and slated to start those meetings in January. And then our seniors have been having their one-on-ones, and during their one-on-ones, though, they start with the conversation of, you know, what are you thinking about doing? Where do you want to go after high school? And then from there, they get them into Naviance and start looking at the career and the college tabs within that. So they get them set up if they haven't been in it already, and they walk them through. These are one-on-one meetings with our seniors. And if you remember, over the years, our seniors have always had the most engagement in Naviance, because that has been always the primary tool that they've been used. And now we're trying to, the goal is that by the time they get to senior year and they have those one-on-one conversations, it's really more of a refinement. And let's see if you're still on track versus a introduction to. So that's where we're headed. One of the things that I think I have it on the bottom, no. On the, okay, there's nothing on the bottom here. Oh, there is more at the bottom. That's what okay, thank you. There it is. So on the bottom of this, and all of this is linked in the presentation, it just gives a brief summary of what the different assessments are and about how long they would take a student to do. And so again, just kind of give you an idea of then why, oh, there's a typo there, so ignore that.
That's it. skill right there.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah, we'll fix that. But that is, so it just kind of outlines them a little bit there. All right. And so with that, I want to jump into the usage. And so this first slide here is all of the high school data, so grades 9 to 12. The number on the left here is the number of total logins, not the number of total students. So just to make that difference. And then this is about how many times a singular student visits on average. This number, though, is the percent of all students in Naviance, how many of them have logged in at least once, how many have logged in at least twice, and how many have logged in 3 or more times.
At the beginning of the school year?
So I last ran this on Sunday. And now again, this is all 9/12. So you're going to see then why there's it is much lower, but this is all of 9/12. But I last ran this data, so this was as of Sunday. For the full school year. Yes, I'm sorry, for the full school year. And so then this chart here also shows like basically the number of students that logged in at different points in time of the year so far. And because it's just high school, that's why we only see the one building. I pulled middle school out, I will show their data separately. Then I wanted to break it down so you could see it by class. So the first set is 9th grade. So of the 9th grade, so far, we've had a total of 722 logins, which is an average of 1.1 login per student. 82% of the 9th grade class have logged in at least once. 17% have logged in at least twice, and 5% 3 or more times. This middle one is 10th grade. Same. 85% have logged in at least once, 22 twice, and 5% 3 times. Juniors, as you can see, much lower.
Yes, I mean, that's really reflective of the shift.
When they're introducing it, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, it's great to see these percentages
Yes.
at the lower grade.
And this is the information that is shared with the counselors too, is because we want kids in, we want them using it because there is a lot that they can do with it, and a lot that can be stored over the years to be able to keep track of, but we got to get them in there first. And they need that initial, they need some like hand holding, if you will, to get into it initially. And so that is what we're seeing the difference, because you'll see when we move to the seniors, it goes up again because they're in the process of doing their one-on-ones. And so having the same types of engagement with students.
I'm gonna say something. that
Absolutely.
I probably shouldn't be.
No,
saying
please
this.
do.
It would be amazing if we could do one-on-ones every year for students.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I will say during the scheduling process this year, school
that's
counselors
right.
will be meeting with every single student scheduling at the high school, 8th grade, 8 through 11.
And I don't say that to wish more work on the existing counselors. It's just that there's never enough.
Right. No, I agree.
Beneficial opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. So we are seeing some gains. Absolutely more work needs to happen, but we definitely are seeing gains. And back to your point, like the numbers that we're seeing at 9th and 10th grade and even 12th grade are definitely connected to the engagement that they had with their counselor and with the platform. So and it is the platform is only as good as what we do with it. But we know that there is a lot of information that's on there that students and families can benefit from. And like I said, then it also stores it for them as they develop over the years. So I'm going to pull up middle school and remember what I said earlier, okay? So middle school is a little different at this time, but it won't stay that way. And so I did not parcel this out by grade. So this is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. As of right now, we've got some good usage at East. But we're working on all of them. And again, starting in January with 3rd quarter, every student will definitely get in, and they will be in it through health class for sure. And so we'll have, by the end of this school year, we'll have about half of the students have gotten in at the middle school, but then they'll pick it up. And when we start next fall. And then it'll be, again, just that continuation. So if you have a goal, let's refine it if you want to, and if you don't, let's add one type of conversation. Yes.
Will you be able to keep, so you're talking about introducing it in health class. Will you be able to track the difference between health class uses and non-health class uses to gauge student interest in the application? Because obviously, if we're instructing them to get in, those numbers are gonna jump.
Right.
As opposed to students who are saying, wow, this is a really helpful utility.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go do it on my own.
No, but I think that, so I'm not able to parcel that information out of Naviance, but that is absolutely a survey that can be done separate from that, to just ask about the user, from the user standpoint of students in general, like, because this is something that, you know, we're saying that you should use, what is that experience like for you? Absolutely.
But isn't that gonna be reflected in that I've logged in more, at least twice or more than 3 times? Because
If it
the
goes
class
above
is
one,
gonna be the one,
then it would
right?
apply,
Yeah.
But
But
if those numbers in the 2 right boxes are markedly higher, then they're going in. on
Right,
their
if
own,
they
right?
do only one instruction, one
Yeah.
entry, one class period, but if they do multiple,
yeah. And
then
I
all of
think
a
It
that-
should be
sudden-
in that.
but it also, if you track how many classes, how many students are being instructed in those classes to do it, you could probably discount those numbers also
Yeah.
to refine them. But you're right, I'm just saying that there's gonna be a jump, and it won't necessarily be because they're enthusiastic, it'd be because they're being instructed to sign in.
Yes,
Sure.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. But so again, pulling this up here though, to just say that it's still a work in progress, and middle school is definitely, middle school and junior year right now are now the targets to get that, to increase those numbers again, so that we see a little bit more consistency across the board. But also that students begin to see, like, again, it's a platform to be able to house things and information that they already are gathering in different ways. For, like I said, going back to from the health class, goal setting has always been a part of our health curriculum for as long as I can remember. And right now they just either do it probably in Google Docs and save it in their drive, or they do it on paper. Well, now it's the same activity, but now you can have it in this platform, and then you can also see how your goals might have changed over time. And the more you learn about yourselves, and like it's all in one place, so it just makes it a little bit easier from that perspective. But you do make a point, Matt, about like from the student's perspective, is it truly, yeah, engaging in something that they want to use? Any other questions about the usage or Naviance in general?
So I mean, as I think about this, are the media specialists who are setting up the speakers, are they pulling up the Naviance related, if it's an accountant, are they pulling
That
up
is a
the
great
accountant
question.
information so that I mean,
Yeah.
exposure,
Yeah.
right?
So at the time, no, and even the work-based learning has just been added for this year, but that's a great suggestion that we're gonna add to it for sure.
And then maybe when you guys meet with the workforce task force, you could get them to put together a little prize and have a contest among the middle school media specialists. So we get the best numbers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Little,
right.
little friendly competition.
A little friendly competition's always good.
Mhm.
And then at the high school, the student council seems like this would be something that if they promoted, took on as a project, right? Because they have the wellness. I mean, a lot of this relates to the wellness and to citizenship and
Yeah.
goal setting. And I mean, it just seemed like that marries up pretty well to that group to do some promotion or a project around.
Think about this, one of the most stressful times in a high school's life is applying to college on the Common App.
Yeah.
The essay writing, and I think if they plod through this, you know, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, they're gonna do exercises and they're gonna learn about themselves and be able to write an essay that really has a sense of who they are. And I think kids really struggle with that, and I think the more we get them on this as a tool that it's really going to help them get the process, because I've sat with kids, friends, kids, my own kids, and really a great student, but really challenged and kind of almost a little hard.
talking about themselves.
when they do that common app and they have to write an essay, and maybe they didn't give themselves enough time, and then it becomes kind of a great effort. And so there's a lot of really, Naviance has really grown and developed.
And
It's some strength that they use it over time.
yeah, and back to your point of like knowing themselves, they're doing the surveys and they have those reports. Those are, even if it like, I mean, it's not gonna be to a T because we're all unique, but it'll give them an idea of maybe even some words to say of who they are in those, in some of those essays, and they're right there in the platform for them as well. Okay. So then the last part then that just kind of wraps all of this together is, like I said, actually getting to some of the activities and the experiences that that we're hoping to put in front of kids, because we know it's not just about what they do in the classroom, but how they apply that outside of the classroom that helps them to see the bigger picture of where they could potentially go. And so this, in all means, is not everything that we have done or are going to do. That is also ever growing and changing. But I did want to just highlight a couple of the events that we have had so far. We have talked a lot about just informing our community and our parents about the different opportunities and exploration things that we have for kids, because that helps kids to then take advantage of some of those things, and their families know to say, hey, did you know that this is happening? Go check this out. And so one of the things that we were actually able to do last year was we partnered with Dawson Career Services and put on a community event that was open to families and community and students. And it was called Oh, the Places You'll Go. And we brought in educational partners and business partners to talk about there was a keynote about like what the workforce is looking like now and where it's projected to go. And then they were able to have breakout sessions with different organizations to learn more about what they offered. The beautiful thing about it, with it being a community event, there were also opportunities for people who were currently looking for employment at that time to hear about their current employment opportunities, as well as talking to students and families about what future employment opportunities could be. And it was a virtual event that took place during the pandemic, but we actually had over 80 people participate, so that was really good. And so I was really pleased with that. And so since then, we continue to partner with Dawson, because they have done different events like this with different organizations and schools. And so when they came to us with it, was like, yes, sign us up. We did do another event this past November called the Career Kickstart, and it was more geared towards families and students, and similarly brought in educational partners and business industry partners, but it was really more focused on, here is our organization and here's what you could do with us. Unfortunately, we didn't have any participation on that one. Not sure what happened. We did have 25 people sign up, but nobody showed up, and it was virtual too. So we came back, we processed, and we're thinking maybe people are over Zoom now, and understandable. So we are trying and hoping that we can plan in-person events from here on out, still partnering with Dawson, but to continue to push that information out to the community and families and students. As I had mentioned, again, we have 5 of our buildings going to BizTown this year. So it's very exciting. And my goal is that by the 23-24 school year, we will have all 7 buildings. I think we'll hit that. But definitely excited. And again, I've only heard positive feedback from the staff and the students of the buildings that have gone so far. And we know that we have had our buildings that have gone multiple years that are always like, oh, we're going to this again, right? So I'm excited about that. This past November, we did have our 10th grade Career Center visits for our students, where they get to go and see. They went to Fairfield, they went to Eastland, and then they come here to see the programs at Clark Hall to get that idea, because they're junior senior programs, so their applications are starting to be due. And actually really excited, just had a recent meeting with Eastland Fairfield, and they have made some updates to some of their programming and to welcome more students into the opportunity. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of that for our kids. We are planning still the summer jobs fair that will be held at the high school. That one is, while it's more temporary positions, it's still the organizations that come do have opportunities for longer term employment for students. So it's a great way for students to get in. It is targeted for high school students for seasonal employment, but it is a great way to get them connected. And I don't know about you guys, but like the job that I had in high school, I was there halfway through college. So, you know, it could be something where it, again, connects them with potential careers in the future. And then something new that we wanted to, so it was first planned, the What Next informational fair was first planned to be in March of 2020. And the day before, I mean, it was the day before they were supposed to have it is when we shut down. So they did not get to do it. This is a program facilitated by Sharon Tomko and Trish Twig. We are excited, though, they are excited to bring it back for this year. And the intent of that program is targeted to our seniors who might have limited or no plan right now in terms of where they're wanting to go once they graduate. So again, bringing in our educational partners like a Columbus State, like a COTC, a DeVry, some of the technical institutions, as well as employers, so that they can hear and talk and see what options are out there. And then they have opportunities to talk to people to start to make some decisions so that they can develop a plan before they cross that stage in May. And so that right now is tentatively planned for April, so that it's fresh and kids know, like, yes, that's what I want to do, and that's now I have the access to be able to do that. And then finally, we will get back to the 8th grade shadow day. Unfortunately, like everything in the world, a lot of the experiences that we had in place shut down for a little bit. But we're excited to be able to bring these things back together. And as I had mentioned earlier, we have our first meeting of the year with our Workforce Advisory Council. They help us to continue to refine the plans as well as add different opportunities for kids. So I'm excited to connect with them, give them an update of what we have going, and kind of get their thoughts on where they think we should head next.
I know it's probably when we talked about this way back in, I don't know if that was 20 or 19. Yeah, we talked about the 8th grade shadow day a little bit, about how to help make it a more robust opportunity.
Yes.
And I'm sure, I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is at some point, is that the goal to get
Yes.
back to doing that, so that it's not just kids going to work with their parents because they don't know what else to
Yes.
do or where
Yes.
else to go. But
And so coming back to thinking through your goals, taking a look at your interests, let's see which careers you are finding that they excite you, or where your interests are pointing you to. And let's find the people that we have in the community or the business partners that we're already connected with that might welcome them in. Because many of our business partners are welcoming students in different ways.
Right.
And so definitely wanting to take that information and connect kids and say, like, here are some options, because, you know, here it shows that you have a strong interest in the science. Well, I don't know, Ohio Health is having a day for kids, or, you know, what I mean? Like being able to connect those types of
that's where we're headed. Good.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Leon and I went to Eastland Fairfield last Thursday for their open house, and they talked about the camp they offer for incoming 8th graders, 9th graders, and 10th graders, I think.
Yes,
I had never heard of it before.
yes.
Do we publicize that? How
Yes.
do we publicize that? And I mean, what an amazing way to get a career opportunity.
Yeah. Yes, they've run their camp for several years now. We have had students who have attended. It typically is information that's sent out either through the buildings or through Judy. At this point, I can't remember, but we do push that information out to students, and then we set up transportation and everything. This is day-long camp. They get to go down there and explore. We do offer that.
Maybe we need to do it a little differently.
Yep, we love the communication on that. Yep, I got that.
Typically the theme.
Any other board members have any questions or comments? Any of our guests have any questions or comments?
First of all, amazing presentation, well done. On the 9th grade, where you said that's where the Naviance English class, if you're doing like honors English, you still get it through like the other level English classes, or is there another way you can get it?
It should have been in all, I would say all
Okay,
English
okay.
classes, so not, yeah, it's because, and the reason why we choose English is because that's where like, we know all ninth graders are gonna be in English 9, and all 10th graders are gonna be in English 10. The other courses, it's like our math classes, for example, we were talking about, it's gonna be a slew of students, and there's some information that isn't received in the same way, but we know English or social studies tend to be grade level, so yes.
I have a question. This was from, I think maybe the beginning of when you were speaking, you were talking about, I think Mrs. Pickle and Tony was saying about adding more guidance counselors, so there could be more time with the students to do their scheduling. And you had made a comment about how the guidance counselors were doing the accommodations for the IEPs and 504s. Can you explain that more? So like, I mean, I have a child that's going into 9th grade next year on an IEP. So you're meaning like during testing, they're the ones that are pulling them? I'm just
No.
not- What do you, how? what do
So
you
when I
do
was
with that?
speaking to that, that used to be one of their responsibilities, to keep track of all the students that need accommodations and work with the administrator to create the appropriate groups, which is a very time-consuming process for the number of kids in the wide spectrum of accommodations. So that used to be one of their roles and responsibilities that's since been taken off their plate.
But they are not actually providing the accommodation, they are not.
Yeah, I mean, I've realized they weren't, obviously weren't during the instruction. I didn't know if you were using them, you know, if kids are being pulled into a separate room. I didn't know if they were serving as that role as the, you know, adult in the room during testing. Okay, so if they're not the ones doing that, you have other people who do that specifically only for children on IEPs and 504s? Now, so does that mean my child would not get a guidance counsel? Like, so,
No.
so there's just a separate guidance counsel that does all of, like,
It's just a separate
Makes sense.
role essentially. So all students have a guidance counselor assigned to them and would be able to, you know, take part in all of these opportunities and have the same level of one-on-one contact and scheduling support and such. That particular task is related to state testing specifically. And so we have case managers and other people now that are taking that on. They're not the intervention specialists that are providing the SDI or giving the accommodations. But it's just that task is taken care of by a different position in the district.
but they would get the same guidance counselor regardless if they're on the IEP or not.
Correct.
Because I know, don't you guys do it by like
Alpha
grade
breakdown.
and alphabet or something like that?
Just by alpha breakdown, yep.
And then lastly, 'cause it is my oldest daughter or oldest child, doesn't really matter what their gender, right? Anyway, oldest child going into high school, and I haven't been in high school for over 20 years. Going into 9th grade, when you say you do these one-on-ones, are parents involved? Like when we're talking about what the schedule looks like? Because I mean, I want my child to be independent, but I also, you know, want to make sure that she's making good choices.
Yeah.
For what classes she's taking.
So what'll actually happen there, the one, I'll come back to the one-on-one meetings for the scheduling piece, but what happens for the scheduling? So there's an initial like class meeting where the school counselor goes to the middle school and talks to the whole 8th grade class at that middle school and begins to get them familiar with the scheduling process and how they would access it through Infinite Campus and things of that nature. And then shortly following that, there will be a parent informational night for all incoming 9th grade parents. So you should be seeing that communication coming soon about when that meeting is set. And then that is when all parents will come and the counselors, again, will go through all of the information in depth on graduation requirements, what it's like to transition, how to schedule, their contact information, and then you can ask any questions there. That is also an opportunity to see some of the programming that's set up because they have kind of like a program fair that they put in place there. So that part will be all families. Then when scheduling actually, so after students selects the classes that they're interested in taking for the next year, then the counselors will come in and check one-on-one to make sure that every student has the course that they need to have, and then also that they understand. So because sometimes what we find is that we might have a student who without knowing, they might, let's go back to math. So our typical pathway is Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. Sometimes we have a kid who says Algebra 1 and then selects Algebra 2 as the next course in sequence, and they're missing. So the counselors want to come and have the conversations to kind of just check through all of the requests before the scheduling actually takes place. So that will be a one-on-one with the student and the counselor during the day. But the counselors are also available if you want to schedule an independent meeting with them.
And that all happens before they graduate 8th grade, or does it
Yes.
happen during the summer?
No, that'll happen before they leave 8th grade.
Okay.
And after the student meeting and after the parent meeting, there's a period of time where parents then at home have the opportunity to
Yes.
sit down and talk with their student, fill out the form to select their courses. So that's where another level of the parent involvement comes in.
I'll add to that. Next week is when they'll be going to the middle schools and talking with students initially. The first week of January is the parent meeting. The following week, they'll be going back and sitting down with every 8th grade student and double checking their course requests. So this is happening pretty quickly.
Do you know if that meeting in January is in person or online?
It'll be in person, I think it's a hybrid.
So I will say there's two things. One is, it would be nice maybe for the middle school principals to send out, because a lot of them have daily newsletters or emails, to send out that information to remind parents that they might have, that their student had the meeting with the counselors. Because then that's a great opportunity for a parent to read it and just be like, oh, let's talk about this at dinner tonight. Because in case the kid's not going to bring it up proactively, that, oh, today we had this like 8th grade assembly and talk to the, and that might get that conversation started. The other thing I just want to say to people listening, and also to answer the question, that open house, I think that the high school does, is just absolutely incredible. I think it was a huge miss, I think, because of the pandemic, not to be able to have it in the way it was intended this past year. But each program of studies has either a department chair or several teachers there, and they're spread out, so you can go with your kid. And so after you hear from the counselor about all these graduation requirements and stuff, what's nice about it is you're hearing then what your kid just heard one-on-one with your kid, so now your kid is hopefully hearing it twice. And then the second piece of it is you can go to all these different departments and like band, choir, and
World
just
languages or
real languages, talk about what language they might want to study. I mean, it is such a great opportunity to really engage with the different programs, which then also kind of helps that dialogue with respect to scheduling.
And all of that happens, I think, before you actually get access to the program of studies. And so then you can see the program of studies, and it's a little less overwhelming, still overwhelming.
I'm pretty positive my daughter's done the survey stuff. She goes to East and she's told me about, like, what facts. But anyway, and then sort of a personal note. I don't know if I think of it. Had to do with scheduling though, but now I can't remember. Okay. Oh, I know what it was. Okay. I know in middle school, like there's an IS for like grade level. What does that look like at the high school? Is it the same sort of thing? So like every year she would get a different person.
Not necessarily, no. It's they have a caseload, and I don't know that it shifts too often unless there's a shift in numbers or things. I don't think that there's major changes. But Jason, maybe you can.
Yeah, I believe it does depend, but I don't think the same case manager follows a student every single year. So I think it's driven by course load, but also the identified disability and the accommodations. So and the collaborative classes that they're in. So I think it changes each year, but you have specific questions, you can reach out directly to me, and I can answer. I can answer, and I can put you in contact with.
I mean, we've always had great ones. I will say, like I realize there's a lot of floating things, and I was a special ed teacher 15 years ago, so I sort of understand. It's been a while, but I will say, like, I would have preferred having not a different person every year, because you build a relationship, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, now we're starting from ground zero again. They've all been great. It's just, it's nice when someone knows your child for more than one school year. That's the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna do a quick switcheroo because the battery on this computer is dying. But we have it all set up for Matt.
Oh, no, that's not.
there's an outlet.
Yeah, it's okay.
Say I have my cord, but I never have anywhere to plug it.
Okay, so we are at the third agenda topic for the night, and that's our COVID task force community update. Tonight, we're going to take a look at some updated data. We're going to have some discussions about some of the most recent task force discussions, as well as have some discussion about an update to some district protocols. So we always take a look at data first. And so the first data set that we look at is positive cases. So this particular slide is just a baseline slide for us. This is actually the same slide we looked at the last time we were together at the end of October. And so just to kind of, level set, back at that point, we were, we had this particular day of reporting was after a long weekend. And so in those instances, we look for, we expect things like that. And then at that point, we were down 2, 3, 4 in our data for students. And then pretty
consistently, you always see our staff data is much lower. So this next slide brings in 2 graphs, and it picks up from October 26th to show October 27th through November 11th. This happens to be a data set that the task force most recently looked at. And then this one here on the right then picks up from November 12th until through this Monday. You can see that all the scales are the same. And you'll start to notice we are starting to see an increase with our student positive cases. So we also, like I said on the last slide, we do expect to see spikes after longer breaks, but we are definitely seeing an increase in our numbers the last few weeks for sure. So this is positive staff and students. Again, the chart on the right up through this week's Monday data. So if you remember, right around the middle of October, we had an update based on House Bill 244. And so we had some protocol changes and some practice changes. So this particular slide shows at that point, we went to when close contacts are identified, parents have the option to have their students stay home or have them stay in school. And so this is the data set that the task force most recently looked at, showing us from October 9th through 19th through November 11th. At that point, 50 students in that time period had chosen to stay at home, 286 had chosen to continue coming to school. And then this next slide shows then the next period, again, November 12th through this Monday. And so this falls in line with our positive data. Also, our close contact data is going up as well. So in this particular time period, 83 students stayed at home, 435 stayed at school. So, essentially over the last several weeks, if you put those 2 data sets together, we would have had over 700 kids, that would have had to quarantine with past practice. That was not the case based on our changes. So this is a slide that shows a special data point that we always keep a pulse on, and this is possible school spread across the district. We are up to 79 total for the entire school year. So this is a data view for the entire year since the first day of school, and then you'll also see the breakdowns by building. That's always something that we're curious about. Blacklick is certainly a school that, for being an elementary building, we keep close tabs on. They're not too far behind the high school, which obviously is our largest. But this is our possible, and I always like to explain it's possible because, based on the contact tracing that's done and where the exposure occurs, but of course we never really know where that exposure might be. So this next slide gets into some conversations that we recently had as a task force, knowing based on previous conversations we've had in these meetings, as well as feedback we've received throughout from community members, this desire to eventually get to a point where we could make some adjustments to our mitigation strategy of the mask requirements. And so, like we've done for the last 24 months, we kind of approach this from a standpoint of identifying some thresholds that would trigger a conversation, not necessarily trigger an actual change. And so as a task force, these are the data points that we chose to set as the thresholds. So we would be looking for less than 5 possible school spread per week and less than 24 positive student cases district-wide for 4 consecutive weeks. Certainly these thresholds could change, they could stay the same, but at this point, those are kind of the thresholds that we've set. We know during the holidays, as evidenced after the most recent longer break that we've had, that we would anticipate an increase as students and staff are out with their family members and celebrating together. But we will be getting together as a task force at the beginning of January to take a look at updated data, revisit the thresholds, and have some discussions about possible tweaks and just kind of where we are with the data. I do have 2 slides that kind of show where we are with regard to these data points. So this is a weekly look at student positives year to date. So you can see all of our weeks over the course of the year. And so this does show cumulatively that increase that we've been seeing here, the last few weeks. We are currently, if you average these out, we're just over about 25 per week. So, floating closely with that positive threshold that we had talked about. And then this next slide takes a look at the weekly school spread year-to-date data, which was set at less than 5. And so you can kind of see where we fall currently in looking at that over the course of a few weeks. So we do have one minor protocol update that we are looking to implement and plan to have some communication go out district-wide in the weekly update on Friday. Close contacts that are identified, and this was a suggestion that came from our nursing staff, will no longer receive personal phone calls from the nurses or the secretarial staff. They will, however, continue getting the notification letters that will be more personalized. And this falls in line with the way a lot of other Central Ohio districts are handling it. We've tried to add that kind of added personal touch, but it's a very time-consuming process. And the notification letters, then you'll see, will be personalized to identify the specific class that the exposure occurred in, so that parents, can get the notification and say, oh, okay, it was in her 2nd period class with so-and-so. And have some conversations from that point. Of course, if it were in lunch, it would say that specifically and identify where the exposure occurs.
So with regard to the personalization of the close contact, I think that's great to shift to letters rather than phone calls. I know that the notifications that currently go out that are either the building notifications or the classroom notifications, they don't specify the student, meaning the student who it's being. So I'll just make this really clear. I have 2 students at the high school. I can never tell which of my 2 is the one who is in the classroom.
Yeah.
Will the personalization identify the student who's meant to be notified? I don't mean the student who
Right.
or
I know what
staff
you mean.
member who's positive. I mean,
Sure.
yeah.
So it won't identify the specific student, but it will say Miss Holloman's class. And so you'll know if Vincent's in Miss Holloman's class.
What if they're, I have my 2 students at the
They
high
have the
school,
same
they have
teacher
the
for
same teacher for some of their classes.
Yeah. So that's a unique situation.
It is, I feel bad
Yeah.
because sometimes, at the very, I'm not doing this anymore, but at the very beginning, when the notifications were new, it was, now we get them so often, it doesn't faze me at all, but at the very beginning, it was like, slightly alarming thing to get a notification letter, but then to not know which kid.
Yeah. So let me take that back to the nursing team and Sue and kind of process.
I mean,
that
again, I think
piece.
it's great to shift
Sure.
away from having to do the personal calls.
Yeah. And just to clarify, we've always sent the letters as we
Right.
just talked
Right.
about. Just now they'll have a little additional detail, but maybe not quite enough in some instances. So we'll take that back and we'll process
Okay.
that. Okay, so we were fortunate to be able to host the vaccine clinic for students ages 5 to 11, which we all experienced as we walked in tonight. It was the second dose. So the first round, Mr. Barrett, you can give the specific number, but I know we had over 400 students participate in the first
I
dose.
think the first dose was 445.
Okay, 445. So hopefully in the next day or so, we'll be able to have updated numbers to know who actually completed the second dose.
Which is pretty good. I mean, we had 500 spots, so that's pretty close to.
And then just the last slide that we always include is just the important reminders for, families to continue checking their students daily for symptoms and, for any students that are experiencing symptoms that are in the child algorithm that, they should stay home to help keep the rest of the student and staff population safe. So of course, we just like to continue with those reminders, any opportunity we have.
Questions from any board members?
Questions. I did read in the paper, a couple of school districts had to either not have classes in person or close early, right? Because of bus drivers out for COVID.
I
So
think Westerville has had
Westerville has
almost
had a couple
every
days.
day, early release and delayed start.
yeah,
There are districts across the country that have actually gone to remote instruction, not because of the virus, but because of lack of staff. And so staffing is a real challenge. It's not just bus drivers, it's teachers across the country. So, the negotiated contracts we did this summer really have helped transportation, our onboard instructors. We have 4 drivers testing. I always get so excited. One passed yesterday, we have one next week. And, but we're competing with trucking.
Yeah, I saw a new posting just went up today for bus drivers for
Yeah.
us.
So,
I talked to somebody last night at the neighborhood meeting that's a driver in Dublin, and he said,
To get Hannah.
I said, it's much closer to
Yeah.
so
Sorry,
we're
Dublin.
competing with, I know somebody that has a logistics company and they are taking bus drivers and training to be long haul drivers. $65,000 to $100,000 a year. It's a much different life, right? It's, you aren't home, you're on the road all the time, but there's a real competition for staff, support staff and teacher, especially special ed teachers. Situations where you don't have, a certified teacher teaching a class that, we're looking desperately to find one, in the area where they're an expert. So, Shay Reed, our HR director, and our principals have done a great job. It's just,
They've been busy. I mean, it seems like this is, in so many ways, this has been a year like no other, but when I think about our HR and just the hiring, to be hiring all through the year like this.
yeah, it's never stopped.
It's a lot.
no, we still have several positions open.
Yeah.
So we've been fortunate and we haven't had to make adjustments like that.
So, and
Hopefully
I'm-
we won't have to.
Yeah, maybe just gonna, too far off the agenda item.
Yeah.
To.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
That's right.
So any other, questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from our guests?
Yeah, so we're here because my 3rd grader keeps asking me, when can we stop wearing masks? And I said, well, you gotta come and participate, honey. So what do you want to say? I didn't think so. She's very shy.
We love hearing from students.
But, yeah, so I'm wondering, first of all, what role all the vaccinations plays in the data inputs, and now that everybody, all the students are eligible, is there any thought to working that into making masks voluntary because people that are vaccinated can feel fairly safe?
I mean, I think definitely, the task force has discussed, the advantages that vaccine rates have on, the health of our students. And, I think that's definitely something that we can continue to work in. We do have some data about which students specifically are vaccinated, and we have some data from the local health departments that tell us, kind of general vaccine rates in our school district area and such. So that's something we can continue talking about and looking at, but it's not something that we necessarily worked in right now to the conversation triggers.
I seem to remember at the beginning of this, Director Barrett sent out a letter that said, until we can have the kids vaccinated, you gotta wear masks. So now they can be vaccinated, so
Yeah, and
I'm just wondering where that plays in, which made sense, made total sense. And I'm like, okay, you gotta wear mask. Well, read this. He's right. And
Should drive the numbers down then, right? That we're monitoring.
Right.
doesn't seem the masks are helping much with the numbers.
No, I think she's saying as the vaccination rate goes up, we should
Right,
see a
right.
lowering
Yes.
of the numbers that
To
are
those
being
thresholds.
monitored for thresholds.
Right, so the vaccines should affect it, but that's
Right.
all in the adult population mostly happened. 70% or so of adults, and so once we get to, I don't know, it's 400 students is only what?
Yeah, I don't know what our
10%,
vaccination.
15% of the student body. So, I mean, I don't know, the ones, seems like now that they have that option to feel safe in the school, they can do it. That the ones that don't want to, maybe should be voluntary. I don't know, that's sort of the,
Well, we definitely want students to be able to be mask free as well. I mean, we want that for all of our staff and students. And I think, we can work on getting some updated vaccine rates, especially after, the second dose clinic just wrapped up tonight. I think at the beginning of the year where we had, the majority of our high school students that had the ability to already have the vaccine, it was actually our numbers and our data that kind of kicked us into keeping the masks. And I think we just have to continue looking at all those data points, as we're making the decisions moving forward. But absolutely, we want to follow up on those vaccine rates as well.
And the thresholds that the task force set were going in the wrong direction. There was a couple, although the aggregate average was close to the measure of 24. We plan to meet after the holiday break and discuss masks. I think it would be January 7th, I think, is set for the meeting, the Friday after we get back. See what happens after the holidays. You're hearing various things about the Omicron variant, maybe it's less, its symptoms are maybe less. I've also read that, the virus is not, the vaccines don't work as well. But I think it's all new. I don't think they really know. So to make a determination.
like a month, we should know a lot more.
Yeah, they'll know more soon.
Yeah, and I guess can I ask a question? So are you still meeting, is this group of superintendents and assistant superintendents still meeting on a regular basis? Because I think, that was useful in discussions about how to compare how different districts were making, especially in Franklin County, but how different districts were making different decisions and what was going into that decision-making matrix, and they're all different, right? So like, I know we had heard, there's some communities that are looking at community spread, some looking at vaccine rate. So it's just all those factors kind of play in. So I think it's important to kind of continue to take that information from the other districts, and since they're meeting on such a regular basis, and kind of put that into the task force discussion too. And thinking about how these benchmarks may evolve into something that is pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yep.
And looking at the vaccination rates.
Yeah, I think all of that kind of goes into making this. But I think at some point, with, I think it's a good policy to set the benchmarks to be able to figure out how we can reduce these strategies. You have a question?
I have, it's kind of a two-part. So if they're not coming to the clinic, how do you know the vaccination status / rate of the school? I mean, the high schoolers, I understand that was probably different. They had their vaccination cards to show. But now.
You
what
mean
does
a
that
5
look
to
like?
11, Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, like all kids that were able to come here tonight. How do you know if they didn't come here, if they just went to their pediatrician or wherever else you get a vaccine? How does the school know?
Well, there's vaccination rates that are published by age of population from the CDC, so everybody they get, and so it's by zip code and or by geographic area. So
Right, but before, Mr. Garrett has said he doesn't want to just look at the zip code, he wants to look at our district. So I'm saying, like, for our district, how do you know that Susie next door to me, whether or not she got the vaccine or not?
Yeah, we don't have individual
We won't have
student
that data.
information,
Yeah.
but I think from.
Well, I know,
Franklin-
I'm just saying,
Yeah, from Franklin County Public Health and from the CATS data,
Well, and
we
then-
get vaccination rates of the school
ODH too
district.
keeps the
Yeah.
data, and that's where CAT.
well,
keeps
I
the
was
data.
looking at ODH and the coronavirus Ohio website today, and it says something like 70% of the school districts in Ohio are now mask optional, which I was like, what? I don't know any, so I don't know where the 70% is coming from. So that, I was wondering how you're going to gauge that. So you're looking at strictly 43230.
oh, I said zip code. I'm
The
sorry, that was
school
my bad.
district.
It's the school district.
Yeah, it's the district. It's not just the zip code.
You can get it for the zip code,
Yeah.
but that's one of the data points. So you can drill down to school district through that CATS data. And to show vaccination by age, but you can also look at it as far as community spread, which is one of the factors. Apologize. I was thinking about like some of the ways that other communities are looking at it, and so they're looking at it from their own data, but they're also looking at community-wide too, and all of that information is available.
So then the second part of my question kind of piggybacks off of what you said, where you remember them saying, you know, we're waiting for the children to be vaccinated to be able to take off the mask. That mine's kind of a personal thing. So my 4 children were denied their mask exemptions at the beginning of the school year for religious reasons. We sent in religious exemptions, and they were denied. From my understanding, because I'm reading the email again right now, it was on the basis of, we believe the health and safety concerns imposed on our schools by the current COVID-19 pandemic warrant mask wearing by those not yet eligible for vaccination, and that our policy as outlined is appropriate for this situation. So I guess that goes back to, okay, so now that those individuals are eligible, can I submit a mask exemption again?
You weren't
for my
denied,
children.
you were given, if I remember correctly, the
We're given
opportunity to
shields.
wear a shield,
Right.
and so you weren't denied. And
I
think
was
what-
denied. I then had to appeal it and hired a lawyer
Oh, I
to
see,
get it approved.
the
for a
original
shield.
one, the appeal though, you weren't denied.
Correct. But my understanding is every single religious exemption submitted to GJPS was denied. And we're all sent the same exact wording. So my question is, now that the individuals are eligible for vaccination, if I resubmit and say, I don't want my children wearing shield for religious reasons,
Well,
What
but I
is your-
understand your children haven't chosen to wear a shield, right? They're wearing a mask.
no, my 2 younger ones in elementary school wear shields. My middle schoolers, I mean, middle school life really isn't that easy to begin with.
Okay.
So to stand out by wearing a shield, no, they're not willing to do that. I gave them that choice.
Okay.
I can't force them to
Sure.
not wear a mask so that they're not made fun of by their peers. But if they're asked to not wear anything, they will gladly do that. But to wear a shield, they're not going to do that, no.
So I think maybe my recommendation is to take a look at the specific language in the personalized.
Well, I'm asking because I know it's not just my family. Like I said, I know every single person that filed was denied. And not everyone appealed it. They just said, whatever. Whereas I said, no, not whatever. I don't want my children wearing them. And I have my reasons.
So I think, again, I really appreciate your comments, and I think it's something we need to take a look at, how that was worded and what that means, and kind of assess that a little bit more. I think it's a difficult thing, I think, to just without sitting down and kind of going through it and thinking about it, be able to address it or converse about it, but I appreciate the comment, and certainly ask the administration to take a look at that, please. So, because it sounds like it impacts more than just, like the several families that were notified, and how they were notified and how that wording was, and that can be confusing. Any other questions or comments?
Just, I got a text that my mom's caregiver's son's school is closing from now to break because of COVID breakout in the school. So they're going virtual from now, so it's a tough, it's a changing virus, right? And so things have evolved, and the way we approach things have evolved, and we have to just keep being gracious about the situation. Nobody wants to wear these, but we want kids to stay in school, right? We want our teachers and our bus drivers to be in school. I hate these, but if it's going to give kids an education, I guess it's the way we have to approach it for now. And they seem to be more socially balanced this year than they have been in the past year. So the kid, maybe there's good in it that we haven't seen, and we have to force ourselves to look at that good.
I did want to share one additional data point. I didn't have a slide on it, but we always like to give an update on the number of tests that we're handing out to our families, because I think that is a huge advantage that our families have the ability to come and pick up those free tests when needed. So last week we handed out 282, and so far this week, of course, this is through Wednesday, 191. So almost 500 in the last couple weeks, and we'll continue to have those available for families.
Are we receiving supply on a regular basis?
Yeah, we ordered 5,000 more.
Okay.
So
I felt bad before we went up to Cleveland. We got tests, and I didn't want to deplete our supply, so I went to the library and got 7 of them. But that's, now I know we are getting a rolling supply, so good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a follow-up question to that, because we've never come to the school for the test. Is there a follow-up with that, or like?
Only typically if there's a positive result, then that's when we get that information.
I mean, so that would be a good sign if you handed out that many and you only have X amount of positive cases at the school, right? That means a lot of people are testing and coming up negative.
Yeah. That could be the case for sure. We also hand them out, to families, and
Yeah, so like I don't use the app when I was testing, because I was not testing because I was required to test. So if you do it without the app, there's no documenting of anything
Right, but I'm
unless
saying if you're handing out that many, right, and there's not that many cases in school right now compared to the number that you're handing out.
Right, it's a self-report. That's all I was saying.
Well, right, but I would hope if it came back positive,
I would hope so too.
then you wouldn't be sending your kid to school.
I would
Right.
hope.
And so
I would hope.
if I recall correctly, and I could click back through the slides if I can get it to work here, but so of that 2-week period where it's been 473 to be exact, I think we've had almost 90 positives over the last couple of weeks. I want to go back and double check that. So
I'll just add, some people have told me that they pick up the test just to have it if they need it. So
Right,
it doesn't
yeah.
necessarily mean that they're
That's
using
nice.
it right away. They
Keep it on
want to
hand.
have it in case.
right, yeah, absolutely.
I would like to say just one more thing, basically, very well taken what you're saying about people are good with it. They don't like it, nobody likes wearing it, but most 90% of people, they just do it, and they don't get upset or anything. But some people do get upset, and we're not those kind of people, but I'm wondering if there have been some fights in the school. Does any of it have to do with some tension with the masks?
I mean, we have had fights in schools and, you know,
Because of the masks.
I don't think because of the mask.
You don't think that contributes or?
You know, I think you're alluding to maybe you can't see each other's eyes, you don't see the expression, maybe you misread something. Maybe there's been a fight or two based on that, but I don't have any data.
Yeah,
on that.
I heard somebody say something like that, but I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking of just people just like, God, I have to wear this thing. I mean,
Frustration.
in Gahanna, nobody wears it. I go to Stone Ridge, 5% maybe people, it's almost no one, when you go out, then you go to the school and you gotta wear a mask when you're in a community, a city where nobody wears a mask. Then Easton, my office building where I work, technically you're in Columbus and it's a mandate, but I'd say it's about 10 to 15% of the people that I see in my building wear the mask. Like, so when these kids are going places, they're going to stores, they're going to restaurants, they don't have to wear them. And then all of a sudden they go in the door, they gotta wear these masks, and the tension, I'm wondering if it just creates teenagers, I remember being a teen, even though I'm old now, it's like I was ready to get upset about just about anything. And so that would be something I'd be like, and I'd be with my buddies, we have to, I know, too, it sucks. I hate the man. It's just, if we're in a city that said that you had to wear a mask, they wouldn't be changing environments.
Not in the city of Dayton, but like in some store, like Giant Eagle requires them to go into the grocery Costco, Costco's in Columbus, but.
I mean, we certainly, every fight that we have, we investigate in a very thorough manner. And to date, I don't know of any that through the investigation have spurred from, the mask frustration or anything like that. So, you have heard of anything like that?
Any other?
I just wanted to comment on what was said about the reason why we're in school and masking. I also want to know what's going on with other high schools in Franklin County that are mask optional. Like, is there a lot of spread there? I don't think so. And then also mental health. Even I think just today, the Surgeon General declared a mental health crisis with children, and the pandemic is a big part of causing that. So, I mean, I just firmly believe that it's not seeing facial expressions is really causing a lot of anxiety. I mean, I know from personal experience. I also have a daughter on the spectrum who has been in a state of depression from not seeing teachers smile at her. And I've instructed her teachers to please pull down their masks and smile at her. And it's getting a little better, but I don't know. I just don't feel like the mental health of the children is being considered, especially when there's such a low risk to even get sick from COVID. This doesn't make sense to me.
Comments, certainly, and something that I think also, I wasn't at the last task force meeting, but in all the ones I've been to, has been a topic of discussion. In fact, there's some mental health representative on that group, and those are discussions I think that everyone is continues to have, and certainly not ignore, but just try to figure out the best answer in a place where there's just multiple answers and multiple opinions about how things should be. So I appreciate that. Okay, with that, any other questions? So I think that's all we have tonight. It is 8:46 and we are adjourned.
And just for, you may not know, but we have a special board meeting immediately following this meeting. So some of us have to stay. You are more than welcome to stay. We're gonna maybe see if anyone needs to go to the restroom and then just go right into our meeting.
Are we going in there?
I think the meeting is in here, but when we go into executive session, we'll go in the other room. Do we have an agenda? I mean, I haven't.
Yeah.
It's not printed. I don't know if anyone's staying, but I have it. It is 8:55 p.m. Welcome to the special meeting. It is December 8th, and I am going to call the roll. Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mrs. Chrysler.
Here.
Mr. Hairston. Mrs. Mooring.
Here.
And I am here. We have 3 items for action under letter A, Human Resources. Is there a motion to approve items, unless there's an objection to taking the items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 3 under letter A, Human Resources?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mrs. Chrysler. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any discussion? I was just gonna say, can you call the roll to somebody, but I'm gonna call the roll. Mrs. Chrysler.
Yes, I was trying to say here.
Mrs. Mooring,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to revised code 121.22 G1 for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of an employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against the employee, official, licensee, or student, unless the employee, official, licensee, or student requests a public hearing.
I'll move.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. I'll just give my standard explanation if there is anyone out there watching. When we go into executive session, we are going to go into a different room. We will be coming back into this room and back into public session and back into streaming after we meet in executive session. But the only board action that is anticipated, the only board action that will happen after executive session is to adjourn the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
I don't remember who seconded.
Daphne.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Chrysler?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. It is 8:58 p.m. and we are in executive